variety of jobs. I worked on both Bush campaigns, 2000 and 2004.
You were in Florida for the
Florida
recount.
for the recount. I was there for that. I went to the White House as deputy political director, and that was a result of all the campaign stuff. I've got two young kids, a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. I love serving in Congress. I love being on the House Ways and Means Committee. But after 4 years in Congress, my wife and I decided that it was time to spend a little more time back home in Arkansas as my kids get older. And that's the main reason we decided late last year not to seek a third term in the Congress. And you know, I think it fits the model of citizen legislator. Go up, spend a few years working on behalf of folks, come back from Washington. And that's what we did. And then with some of the things that went on with the Lieutenant Governor's office, some people approached me, encouraged me to run. I looked at it, talked with my wife, we prayed about it, and decided that this is a real opportunity for me to continue serving, and we avoid the issue that we had with Washington, which is it's 1,000 miles away. I'll be able to serve and advocate for things that I believe in, but I'll be in Little Rock about 4 miles from my house, so I can see my kids grow up.
With the recent controversy regarding the lieutenant governor, there are a lot of questions as to why we should have a lieutenant governor at all. Address that for me.
Sure. I think there's a role for the lieutenant governor. If you look at someone like Win Rockefeller, he served with integrity in the office, but he also used his contacts, his experience to advocate on behalf of Arkansas. And I think that's a great model. The other thing is, if you have, God forbid, something happen to a governor, whether it be a legal problem like we had in our state, or whether you have someone with a health problem or what have you, you certainly could hypothetically set up a system where a legislator moves into that role. But legislators are elected by a very, very small percentage of the state. So it's good to have someone who's been elected as the backup from the whole state, that the whole state votes on, just like the governor. And so it makes a lot of sense. Do I think we can do things better and innovate in that office and save hardworking taxpayer dollars? Absolutely. I think we can reduce the spending. I certainly will drive myself in my own F-150 truck. Not going to ask the state police to provide personal transportation for me. So there's some things we can do. And one of the things I want to do in the office in particular is focus on jobs. As a member of the House Ways and Means Committee, I've learned a lot about tax policy and trade, and I want to use that knowledge to help develop policies so that Arkansas not only can compete across the world, but we got to compete with our neighbors, Texas and Missouri and Tennessee and these Louisiana and Mississippi. These states are competing sometimes for the same projects and the same jobs. And I think I can bring my experience to bear and be a resource for the governor and legislature.
What would, got a couple of minutes left.
Okay.
What would be some of your, aside from jobs and aside from working with the legislature, what would be some of the goals that you would like to accomplish as lieutenant governor? Well,
one of the things I'd really like to do is advocate for significant changes in our tax policy. If you look at the ability to compete or inability to compete with other states, a lot of that rests on how attractive you are. How attractive you are to the companies that would potentially move here and bring good paying jobs for Arkansans. If you talk to people like the folks at Caterpillar, they'll tell you if you give Arkansans an opportunity, they are hardworking. They do a great job. We have a great workforce, but we need to make sure that our policies are the policies that attract job growth. I think there's a lot that we can still do in that. I mean, if you just look at Texarkana, I was just over there. Texarkana has an exemption for their income tax. Well, why do they have that? Because tax policy matters. They were afraid, and for good reason, if they didn't have that, a lot of the jobs that might come to, and a lot of the people that might move to the Arkansas side wouldn't wouldn't be attracted, that they would go straight to Texas. Well, if that sort of tax policy change makes a difference on both sides of the line for Texarkana, well, then it just makes sense that if you viewed Arkansas and Texas as two halves of a city the way Texarkana is, it makes sense that the same sort of policies have an impact on the ability to attract jobs. So we have, so my goal will be to really look at our regulatory system and our tax system and say, how can we make this better to be the most competitive we can?
One final question, since you are in Magnolia, tell my readers about your Magnolia connection.
Well, a lot of people don't know this, but one of my cousins was Sid McMath. He was here from Columbia County. My great-great-grandfather, John Ray Sanders, is buried down in Macedonia, and Governor McMath's great-grandfather was John Ray Sanders. And so I have deep roots in Columbia County. My mom's side was from Columbia County. My mom was born in a little house right where the Columbia Christian School is. That's where my grandmother's house was for decades and decades and decades. And we used to go there and play out on the farm growing up. So I have deep roots on my mother's side. And so I moved out here with my dad, the Southern Baptist Ministry. He took Emmanuel Baptist in 1980, and we moved to Magnolia, where my mom had been from. And I went to Central Elementary, right down the road here. Went to junior high, high school, and this has been my home ever since when we moved here in 1980. And you know, I knew this was a great place to live because in the 70s, when we would come visit grandmother, this is where we would hang out. So I have a lot of fond memories. I've used a lot of gas cruising up and down Main Street. My buddies and I did that a lot for years.